we're gratified that attention has come into the northwest part of the country as well as other places, but most strongly in the northwest, where they're looking seriously at the abuses of the police and the net nanny operations, the brainchild of former disgraced police sergeant Carlos Rodriguez, who of course went from one disgraced operation to Operation Underground Railroad to continue his pattern of disgrace there, which forced out Tim Ballard, and I guess he's going to be the new Tim Ballard there. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I am sure that what we never hear about in any of these news articles is what the police are doing in the net nannies and why those police should be prosecuted instead. We talk about what happens, what the net nannies represent, what police say, what prosecutors say. We talk about there's certain questions about it we hear in the press, but we never actually get around to talking about where the attention should be on the police abuses, which far eclipse any abuse that net nanny or ICAT claims that individuals who were not on adult platforms looking for children create. So we have the long running series from the Washington Post talking about over 1,800 cases where police were abusing their badge. And this comes out of the database of police misconduct, which is at the Bowling State, Bowling Green State University in Ohio, excuse me. And in that database, over and over again, police are not getting the same penalty the rest of us are getting for not touching anybody or for not touching on any sort of inappropriate conduct and even not using any sexually explicit language. Police are actually raping children and getting a much lower penalty than many of us are getting for never having the intention of talking to children, as we pointed out. So, we have two cases out of Texas, one having to do with Keven Coffey, who was a small town police chief there, as reported by the Washington Post in their Abused by the Badge series, as well as by I think, the criminal news um, publication. I'm not quite sure which, but Mr. Coffey had 11 jobs in 8 years, and he used his badge in one small town in Texas to intimidate people, to sexually harass people, to inappropriately touch 16-year-old girls, and to refer to handcuffs as to what he might do with them at the appropriate time, to send suggestive texts, to harass and intimidate them by showing up to their property and shining his police lights into their bedroom window, all in an attempt to indicate a level of control over not only the people, but the town. And in addition to this, we have another uh, police uh, captain, as reported by ABC affiliate in Amarillo, Texas. His name was Wayne McMillan. And former Captain McMillan apparently um, was indicted by a Randall County grand jury on one count of sexual assault of a child and one count of indecency with a child by sexual contact, whatever that is exactly. But apparently, the charges were initially lower level charges and they were increased. Apparently, he's accused of touching the breast of a girl under the age of 17 in 2008. But of course, that didn't stop him from continuing being a policeman and even going up the ranks. In 2012, he touched the same victim's genitals. 4 years later, he was arrested finally by Texas Rangers. Apparently, he was reported to Department DPS there. I'm not quite sure what that stands for, but he was released after posting a $50,000 bail. He remained suspended with pay, which is interesting because the rest of us never got any pay. We were suspended, but no pay. And it's very, very typical in many of these cases for policemen to be suspended with pay because it's really unfortunate that they would have to go without their rather nice salaries. Um, and there's an inspector general's report according to this article, and He's been working since 2003 with, I guess, Department of Public Safety, DPS. But it just underscores how there's one rule for the police and there's another rule for everyone else. There's one characterization for the police in the media, and there's another characterization for the rest of us. There is, we got to give the police a benefit of the doubt, but we don't have to give people who have had no prior experience, no prior arrests, no felony convictions, and certainly nothing sexual with a child, whether they be a policeman, I'm sorry, a teacher, a lawyer, a an accountant, or a coach or whatever. We never give those people the benefit of the doubt. So I want folks who are trolling on this side and others, excuse me, to make sure that you pay attention to this because you're very, very iffy with the facts. You're very, very interested to tell why it is that people like me are fighting, and you're claiming that we're apologists somehow. We're trying to, you know, move the clock back and pretend that something else happened and distract. And what we're really doing is telling the story of what should never have happened to people who are innocent. And again, I'm not protecting people who did something, and I'm not making excuses for people who did something. I'm saying there's a lot of people who are being netted up in these things who didn't do anything close to what the police said and never intended to. And you can get into their mindset, but if police had not engaged them to begin with, had not directed the conversation, we have to assume that they wouldn't have done anything because we believe in innocent until proven guilty, right? But not according to the head of the sheriff's department, sheriff's union out there in Washington State, who said, "Well, the reason we don't have statistics that they're complaining about, the reason we don't have real children is we got there in the nick of time and we stopped them from doing something," which is really a kind of creative bullshit because it's supposition. It assumes that something happened or would have happened, but for the police, but we don't know that. And is that the way we conduct things? Again, I've used the analogy. If you have a policeman at the bottom of a hill and he throws tacks and glass on the road, and people get into huge accidents, and then he runs up and writes them tickets, people will go nuts. If the police line up and SWAT teams and kick in every eighth house door on the supposition that maybe something's happening here, people will lose their minds. Why are they not losing their minds here? Why are they not saying not only is there a different standard of operations when we look at the police, but why is there not a democratically controlled operation where the operational objectives are brought to the community through community action groups, through the city councils and the county commissions, where they engage the public and say, this is what we're trying to do. Why don't they do that? Why are they just simply going out there and doing these things without any community buy-in, assuming the community buy-in, and then lying to the community about what they're actually doing? That's a question for the trolls. I hope they take under advisement because it's very, very easy to jump to all manner of conclusions without understanding the facts. And it's funny because I hear all the time as a final note, oh, you didn't show your work, oh, you didn't post this, oh, you did. And when I do post these things on the bottom, I never hear anybody reading the article and contacting me back and saying, "Oh, you're right. This is happening. That person was scandalized about that. They were brutalized by the police. You're right. It does appear to be something there, and I'll look into it further." No, they're just interested in name calling. And this is what we have to get out to the public, that eventually they're coming for your grandchildren, they're coming for people who are of intellectual disability, people who have dementia, all manner of things, because they have to keep these stats going up. If they don't, the funding is going to dry up. The stats are going to go down, and then they're going to have to explain one of two things. They're either going to have to say predation is going down because we've been doing our job, and then when there's one case over here, they'll be held to pay, or they have to say, despite getting millions and millions of dollars, our efforts are not actually working. And so maybe we lawmakers need to step in and look at this a little further. And that's actually what's happening out in Washington state. Lawmakers are hearing about this so much, they can't believe the egregiousness of it. And they're finally themselves having their feet held to the fire by their constituents. And what we're finding out is what we've been saying all along. So please look into this, get the facts, and understand exactly how damaging it is to public safety when officers of the law are behaving in a lawless fashion. This is Norman Michaelation for ICAC Unpacked. Have a good day.